शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणेश्वरं गुरुवरम् योगासनाध्यासितम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षादात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामच्युताव पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवतु। Namo Ramana. In this Tuesday Self-Enquiry session from Ramanacentre for Learning, Bangalore, we have been reading the reminiscences of Sri Mahakrishna Swami from the book Years in the Presence of Ramana, My Master, which was originally edited by our founder, President Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We are looking at the section pertaining to his stay in Ramanashramam, and this particular reminiscences, he talks about the techniques of teaching. Mahakrishna Swami is talking about the techniques of the teaching. Bhagavan Sri Ramana did not use complicated texts to orient people on the path of spiritual consciousness. His teachings were eminently practical. He only expounded a theory when he responded to specific needs and questions of the devotees and as a necessary base of practice. It was through silent instruction and his behavior that he transmitted the teachings. And in the small daily tasks, these teachings were lived, which are not philosophy in the full sense of the word, since Sri Ramana did not orient people to think of a solution to the problems, but to eliminate thoughts. So here in this paragraph, Mahakrishna Swami is conveying it very strongly for us to understand that the spiritual path, the Atma Vichara, or the truth, is not a very complicated thing. It is such a simple that spiritual consciousness, of which is the substratum of all of us, is something verily available, naturally available. So all we need is no big theory to show it. We just have to point at it, which is so naturally available to all of us. So he is saying that Bhagavan would often not refer to complicated texts, but simply orient the people to that substratum, to that spiritual consciousness. Therefore, it was like just pointing the finger at that. And in theory, we may have to explain many things, but in practically pointing to that truth which is available to all of us, because it is not something that it is very specific to Bhagavan, or it was specific to some degree of practice of spirituality. It was naturally available. It is naturally available to everyone. And we also see Bhagavan would do that with animals and plants and everybody alike. So Bhagavan would not try to explain with a lot of theory. He will simply point to that truth, that spiritual consciousness, which is naturally available. In fact, we cannot forego it at all. We can forego an idea. We may not listen a spiritual instruction, or we may listen a spiritual instruction. In that realm, it's a possibility that we may do something or we may not do something. Whereas something which is naturally available to all of us, which is the spiritual consciousness, the truth, how can we not do away? So all Bhagavan had to do was simply point to it and ask us to look there, which was available to all of us also equally. And therefore, he eliminated all theoretical experiences as much as possible, and he would only demonstrate it practically, says Mahakrishna Swami. He further goes on to say, it's not that he would not use a theory. He would use the theory when some of the specific needs were arise due to a question by a devotee, and that too only to point to that which is naturally available. Like that 10-man story when Bhagavan says, he's basically pointing us where the error is, that we are counting all our experiences, but not counting at that which allows us to experience all of this. So in the 10-man theory that he would use, which is basically a spiritual instruction if we have to, it's only to show practically for us that when you are, how foolishly we count all the other 9 and not count that which enables us to count all of it. So we count, we think of the mind, we think of the intellect, we think of the ego, we think of the body, we have a lot of information about all of them. What is it in all of us, that spiritual consciousness, which enables me to see them and recognize, yeah, I have an egoistic thought, or I have a thought in my mind, or I have an intellectual idea here, or I am perceiving an object. So by simply giving, he would use the theory, as Mahakrishna Swami says here, only to point to the practical thing, the error that we keep on doing when we are practicing it. We are still largely dependent on, he would clearly know that we will still largely dependent on an object-oriented experience, because that is what we are used to. We are used to seeing an object like a thought like I. We are used to experiencing a thought like in the mind, an idea. But that is not the way to recognize the truth, which is the substratum, which enables all of these experiences to be possible. Therefore, he would largely avoid a theory and point to, therefore his question would always be, who am I? Find out what do you refer to as I. By doing so, he was bringing the attention and trying to us to less dependent on theory or objective experience, and basically by any objective experience we will ask, to whom is this again, who am I? By that, he would nullify that approach or show the error in that approach. and which is exactly what is the 10th man theory is. That you forget experiencing that which is enabling you, and you look at all the other experience and you keep on doing that 9 counting from one to another, but forget that 10th man, which is you yourself, or the consciousness which enables all of it, or that pure existence which enables all of it. So here Bhagavan Mahakrishna Swami is beautifully revealing it to us that he would use only those theory which was necessary for the practice. So largely his attention was, there is a naturally available truth, simply recognize it and be that. There is no need for us to have a heavy knowledge of anything. There is something very naturally given to all of us. And in fact, whether we call ourselves a Gnani or an Agnani, it is equally available to all of us. Just recognize it as yourself and be that. There is no need to have an expounded debate or theory about all of it. So it's a very beautiful way Mahakrishna Swami is talking about the techniques of teaching here by Bhagavan. And sometimes, how do we, when we recognize this truth, then what more we need to express about it? Then silent alone is the pure expression of it. Because there is no, we also understand using any theory would make anybody else again use their, depend on the objective experience or objective based of learning. But being in silence, being with the truth, and is the direct expression of the truth, and therefore that is what he says, that Bhagavan would transmit the truth in silence. And that is his most beautiful direct teaching. So in here is not even giving the option that there is a theory or a practical. He is saying the truth alone is. Even this division of theory and practice is completely removed, and Bhagavan is saying that truth which is naturally available and remaining as that, he is transmitting that truth, and that is the most potent way, or the silent instruction that Bhagavan is transmitting, says Mahakrishna Swami. And in the small daily tasks, these teachings were lived. So the instrument, the body, the mind, the intellect, all of which we perceive it as Bhagavan would reveal that it is only an instrument in the hands of the divine Leela. And therefore it would do what it has to do. And he would continue to be the silent truth that he verily is. One with all of the instrument, one with everything, which is nothing but the manifestation of the same truth. So he would the daily living of Bhagavan, Mahakrishna Swami says, was nothing but that of pure love towards everything. Because that truth alone has manifested as all of these things. So Mahakrishna Swami goes on to tell here that the daily tasks, these teachings were lived, which were not philosophy in the full sense of the word, which we may not see it as the real philosophy, but that is the real philosophy, he says. Since Ramana did not orient people to think of a solution to the problems, but to eliminate thought. That is what. Let the body, the mind, all of this be an instrument to that truth. Let not a thought be our reliance. We need not have to rely on thoughts. We need, even when we are understanding the spirituality, we need not rely on a thought to understand it. He would say, rely on the truth. The truth is so naturally available. So the faith is to be on the truth. The faith has to be on that which is, not on something which is imaginarily, which rises. And even if we understand intellectually this truth, we know that it fades away in course of time. So, but the truth, the pure existence, the pure spiritual consciousness, which the self that Bhagavan is talking about, was so naturally available. And if we rely on it, and if we have full faith on it, That is all that is to be done. And that is the real practical way of living through the life. And that is the real transmission of the highest truth. And therefore, there is no need for a thought, no need for any talking, says Mahakrishna Swami here. In the next paragraph, he says, we called him Bhagavan, and some associated that body to the master. But the divine cannot be restricted to a simple physical body. Out of compassion, he manifested himself for the world in a more tangible form, and blessed is he who recognizes him as the master and opens himself to receive his sacred Upadesha. So here it is, Bhagavan, here Mahakrishna Swami, very beautifully revealing to us that truth which we call as I within all of us is Bhagavan, and not that physical form. No, but though it was a compassionate appearance of Bhagavan in that physical form, and it is a lot of aid for all of us to relate to him. But the main idea by the main teaching or main thing that we need to understand is that Master is available by opening up the natural truth, and he wanted us to recognize that as the sacred Upadesha, so that we recognize that truth which is naturally available. We rely on that truth alone for our day-to-day things, and that truth alone should be the thing that we meditate and we do tapas about and we have faith in. And that is all that Bhagavan wanted us to recognize, says Mahakrishna Swami here. A very beautiful 2 paragraphs in which he reveals how the silent teaching of Bhagavan and how that the truth which alone is, and to which alone we have to completely abide and have faith in, was revealed by Bhagavan in sometimes very, very practically, at most times very practically, and at times sometimes through theory or through some examples to make us recognize the natural importance of the practice, and finally to rely on that truth alone, even in the daily life of ours, so that is the ultimate thing, because the truth alone is, and the truth alone is everything. And these ideas and concepts and thoughts that we have is all imaginary, and we today are quite relying on it to, even when we embark on the spiritual path, to reveal that which is naturally available. We still think somebody has to give us an idea, somebody has to give us a concept, some thought has to come within me to recognize the truth. But Bhagavan here was saying the truth alone is recognize it by questioning who am I, and have complete faith having recognized it in it, and let that truth run the whole thing. Then all these thoughts and ideas which were earlier thought to be the solution for all the problem would be seen as only imaginative and of absolutely not much use, but maybe an aid at the most. But the truth alone is the most important thing, says Bhagavan, and indeed Mahakrishna Swami through these 2 beautiful explanation of how Bhagavan gave us the teaching. With Bhagavan's immense grace, with which alone we have come to this most direct path. Whenever a thought rises, it is only we can recognize it, that it is A, objective to us, it is available as an object to our consciousness, and B, perhaps very subtly, we are still relying on that object to reveal something. Both of which Bhagavan is saying through this paragraph is not the right thing. Therefore, by inquiring to whom is this, who am I, the attention which was outward turned towards a thought, or which was relying on a thought to reveal something truth, is diligently brought back to that truth by questioning who am I, and made to recognize that is our reality and to rely faithfully on it. And by repeatedly practicing this, Bhagavan assures that the truth alone remains and the truth alone takes care as automatic divine action in everything. And that is the whole purpose of the spiritual journey. Bhagavan's immense grace, let us practice Atma Vichara for the next 20 minutes. Namo Ramana. In this next session, Nandakumarji will be contemplating on self-enquiry from Bhagavan's teaching and his experience. And finally, we will be concluding the satsang with prayers to Bhagavan. Namo Ramana, Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana, sir. Bhagavate Shri Ramana. Let's begin by taking up Bhagavan's instructions to all of us through Amma, that the ordainer controls the destiny of the whole creation through the destiny of the individuals, through the destiny of each individual. By being present within each individual, the ordainer controls the destiny of the individual as well as the collective. So that which is to happen will happen. Try however much you may to stop it. And that which is not to happen in the collective will not happen. Try however much you may as an individual to make it happen. This is certain. Hence, the best course is to remain silent. We understand remaining silent at the deepest level is for the ego principle to vanish. And at the collective flow of life in the sensory experience that we see, we hear, we taste, we touch, when we don't impose our individual will on it, we see the flow of life. We see the ordainer running the flow of life because we have surrendered our individual like and dislike. Whatever the information about the world may be coming in through the eyes and ears, let us for the moment give up fragrance, taste and touch as serious information providers about the world flow, though they are in a little bit. The eyes and ears being the primary communion, the primary satsang constantly with the world. When we don't impose our like and dislike on our seeing and hearing, then we see this rule of Bhagavan, that the ordainer controls the destiny of the individual India as a whole, humanity as a whole, creation as a whole, by being present within each individual and controlling the destiny of each individual to whatever temporal level that individual may exist. From beginning to end, the ordainer remains and controls according to their prarabdha. That is why in the collective, if you want something else to happen, that is unreal. Because the collective is going to come out as that this country is going to send that missile towards that other country. So there is no point in the individual having a like or dislike about that. Once you know that, then we see that life is a flow, and we learn the art of not being in conflict with the flow, one of which manifests as what Dilipji usually does, taking one verse at a random, that life's flow that the ordainer brings to us as joint prarabdha. To all of us in this satsang, and what the rest of the universe under the control of ordainer is bringing us, let us say, is verse number 811. We have not, any of us have a liking or disliking towards this. In our outer perception, in you as hearing and in me as seeing and reading, the ordainer has provided the verse number 811. And how do we take our enquiry further? We don't know what is there in 811. That has been provided to us jointly by the ordainer. So let us continue. Let us read 811 and see about how Bhagavan's rule of the ordainer controlling the destiny according to the prarabdha of each individual. How does it come about factually as a reality? It has come to us now as verse number 811. Let us see our joint prarabdha pan out. The verse goes like this. If the strong persecute the weak through their great might, the wise should realize that God, who tirelessly takes pity on the weak, will judge those acts of oppression and mete out appropriate punishment. It is the duty of the wise to act with compassion towards the oppressed. So, this is a wonderful verse regarding God's omnipotence and what Bhagavan says in the ordainer controls the destiny. The verse provides us with a situation, with an event. The event is that we see, as the Paramahamsa saw a rich boat owner thrashing the boatsman, and he could feel that pain of that blow on his back. We are seeing some unfair act. Some powerful man, a strong, persecute the weak through their great might. They are acting unfairly. Somebody is putting down another human being right in front of you. What is the right course the verse is directing us? That is it to judge the person who is making the oppressive act, or is it to support the troubled one without making any remark against the oppressor? The world experience itself is to experience and learn. And when we are in an oppressive mode, when we want to control others, we won't be in learning mode. So there is no point in dealing with somebody who is in an oppressive mode, who is in a controlling mode, who wants to challenge life and take complete dominion over another, which is actually how the life presents itself to him at that moment. Life is presenting itself as a weak person, and I, out of my individual nature and egoism, I judge I am greater than life, because life itself has come as the poor man in front of me. It's asking for 10 rupees. I see that man is not having any physical defect, and I start abusing him. And this is seen by you, that I am the oppressor, I am oppressing a weak person who is asking for alms, I am shouting at him. What is it that you as listener or the person who comes across this event to do? Muruganar and Bhagavan are saying, don't try to correct me. I am now feeling I am greater than life. I am greater than what the ordainer has brought before me. There is no point in. Whereas the one who is oppressed by the situation, for him also this is flow of life. The flow of life, the ordainer has made him realize his weakness, his individuality, and his refusal to flow is being shown to him more clearly, and he is in a position to learn, and compassion towards him is what Muruganar wants us to do, rather than judge the one who is. Both are going according to ordainment. Both the oppressor and the oppressed are acting according to the flow of life. But then, out of the two, where our compassion should go, our compassion should not be spent in judging and criticizing the oppressor, but should try to identify with the weak person, that the ordainer is controlling everyone, and he has put that gentleman in a weak position, and it is best for me to identify with him. I could have been him. I could have been the person in the aircraft. The flow of life might have indicated my poverty, my temporality, my being bound in time, my life having a beginning and end, I may feel oppressed with the fear of death, with the fear of not having. It is better to identify with such a one than somebody who is under the illusion that he is in control of the ordainer. He is able to challenge the ordainer. He is able to, whomever we are abusing, we are directly abusing the ordainer. The Akasham Patitam Toyam, it is not only all the drops are going towards the ocean, not Sarvadeva Namaskaram alone are going to the ocean. All our actions are going towards the reality, and the reality is the self. Each bit of our action, whether humility of the poor person or oppression of the rich person, is all an offering to Yatagacchati Sagara. It's an offering to Keshavam Pratigacchati. Without knowing that, we play these roles of oppressor and oppressed. And when to whom to identify with, says, better give some hand to the oppressed out of compassion. If you want, you help him in some way, because now you are identified with him. Then you can reflect on how one has to flow with life. If you are fighting with the one who is trying to control, you are going to get into an unending flow of revenge and actions. You will do something to him, he will do something to you, and that will keep on going. Whereas the one who is feeling broken, the one who is feeling down and out, if you help him and help him without any expecting of returns, there itself the karma ends and you can start seeing the flow of life again. That the whole flow of life, I don't need to have any like or dislike, that it is run by Ishvara. Inside each one, Ishvara is present. And I can start listening to life, I can start seeing life without the disparity I saw. For a moment, I saw somebody oppressing, somebody oppressed. How to come back to the flow? Try to help the oppressed, not fight with the oppressor. And don't have any intention or expectation in that helping. Then you can quickly come back. Somehow the ordainer has allowed me a chance to be of help to another person subject to this flow, subject to this current. I am as susceptible as that poor man. I may have a few coins in my pocket today, but I am as susceptible to the flow. So it is better to identify with the person in the aircraft which crashed. It is better to identify with the person who is oppressed rather than the person who is having Maserati, BMW, and saying that I used to drive these two cars and then keep them in the garage and go in Rolls Royce for some time. I was living life. When somebody says like that, instead of identifying with him, somebody who has put into a stage of deprivement, when we can identify, then we can see that the ordainer is the one who is present within both and is keeping the flow of life. How do I come to that? By listening to both. When the rich man says like that morning I will have one car, afternoon I will have one car, can we listen to that without rebuking him? And somebody who is having poverty without any money seems to be having great suffering. Can we listen to that story also without like or dislike? Then we are surrendering the sensory life to the ordainer. That is when we are able to turn inward. Bhagavan says, turn inward, turn inward. How can we turn inward from the senses if you are still having likes and dislikes towards the sensory happenings? If you still have some strong opinions, whether Israel is correct or Palestine is correct or Iran is correct, then the sensory inputs, you will be engaged in arguments with that. When you have no likes or dislikes to whatever you hear, whatever you see, then you can turn the senses inward. And that is when you can start seeing the thoughts. That life is not a sensory flow. Life is a flow of thoughts. If there is a past, present, future in senses, there is a past, present, future in the thoughts. What thoughts you had, what thoughts you are having, what data you want to gather. You feel you will become complete if you get some data in future. That is the mental past, mental present, mental future. From there, we are able to observe that there are buddhi related thoughts, there are personality related thoughts, Bhagavan says all this, the mental thoughts, the buddhi thoughts, the personality related thoughts, and the thoughts that connected to the sensory world, all arise after the rising of the I thought. So irrespective of whether you are having a like or dislike towards the sensory world, or whether you are having inner thoughts of whatever nature, mental thoughts, buddhi thoughts, or personality related thoughts, you have to ask only one question: for whom is this thought? Then from sensory flow, we understand that it is a flow of thoughts. Then when we come to singular thought, that this is the waking state, or this is Murugar, or this is the good, or this is the present moment, then we have reduced the flow to one thought. Life is not a flow of thoughts. Life is a singular thought. Each thought as it arises, Bhagavan says, let it go. The thought separates us as the one who is the thinker and one that is being thought of. And life is divided as thinker and thought. Whereas in the ordainer, in the supreme being, this division as thinker and thought is not present. The ordainer looks at the whole flow of life as the I. Bhagavan says in Aksharamadmalai that in Arunachala, his self is going always as I, because all levels of existence is he only. So when thought arises and wants us to link with the sensory, the emotional, the mental, the buddhi or personality related levels of flow of life, one should diligently ask, for whom is this thought? The answer will always be, this thought is for me. Who am I makes us identify with the ordainer. With the ordainer who is controlling our destiny and the destiny of the collective by release of thoughts. How is he controlling? He is controlling our individual life and the collective life by release of thoughts from within. So when collective thoughts come also, we should ask, for whom is this thought? For whom is this thought? As the tapasya, as the vichara deepens, we identify with the ordainer who is always shining within us as I. He is not pushing us into the various levels of existence. He is always pulling all existences into himself as I. We have to merely join that current by asking, who am I? When that who am I takes hold, we have Sayujya with the ordainer as he is. The ordainer has never become the creation, has never become the sensory, the mental, or the buddhi creations. He is always present unchangingly as I. And that is where this quest of opening the book and taking what the life gives us. Verse number 811, we just went with what ordainer gave us. And we took the enquiry through thought to the self of all, where the ordainer is not divided as the seer and the seen or knower and the known, but is always shining beyond time, beyond creation as I. We are not creating the creator. We are not creating the ordainer. We are merely joining his being by following the instructions of the great one who is already one with the ordainer, who is already one with the self. So we have this understanding in this Spurana, I am one with Bhagavan. I am merely joining Bhagavan as per his instructions. And no more thoughts, no more senses to free ourselves from. Only Bhagavan shining self-luminously as I. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, sir. Thank you. Apara Satchit Sukhavaridashi Yasyor Vimatram Bhuvanam Samastam Guhahitam Tam Ramana Gabhiram Chinta Vihiram हृदि चिन्तयामि चिन्ताविहीनम् हृदि चिन्तयामि. Morna, sir, thank you. Morna to all.